A new company has entered the space industry and is set to transform the industry for the better. We are talking about SpaceX and how it's going to change the space world with its powerful rockets, inexpensive transportation, and other costs. It's been some time since space exploration owned the national spotlight like it does today. Before the turn of the century, NASA, ESA, and other government-funded programs were the only space flight organizations in the industry. However, their ambitions were tame compared to the missions of the 70s. All that would begin to change in 2002, following the establishment of SpaceX. It takes a long belief to challenge the United States government in a space race, but Elon Musk was up for it. Selling his two software companies, Zip2 and PayPal, the entrepreneur invested nearly $100 million into the design of his first rocket. While the first attempts were shaky, Musk finally got his rocket into space and pushed forward. Over the years, SpaceX revealed a variety of new equipment and technology that is changing the space flight industry. All of the private company's innovations keep its primary goal in mind. Musk is set on drastically reducing the price of spaceflight to invigorate exploration and eventually establish a colony on Mars. SpaceX versus NASA rockets. SpaceX's climb up the launch value chain has been pretty rapid. In the span of 2 decades, the private space company went from the small Falcon 1 rocket to the expendable Falcon 9 to the reusable Falcon 9 to the Falcon Heavy. The company focused on solving one problem: small satellite launch, before extending its model to ride-sharing larger satellites, spacecraft, and people. SpaceX absorbed knowledge from legacy NASA programs, cutting-edge software development, and its own constant testing. Its engineers took the Falcon 9 architecture and adapted it into Falcon Heavy, the first American heavy-lift rocket in decades. Compare that to rockets like the SLS, Apollo, or the Space Shuttle, bespoke projects designed from the top down over years to solve one huge problem, which failed to be sustainable over the long term because of their high costs. NASA versus SpaceX philosophy. Experts believe that NASA's choices reflect a belief in a world that is linear and controlled, where experts have access to the knowledge and tools they need to deal with future risks. SpaceX paradigm, on the other hand, sees the world as a dynamic, adaptive system where responding to a changing future requires flexibility. The numbers game. In a statistical analysis of NASA and SpaceX projects, the results are pretty clear. In 118 space missions, NASA saw an average cost overrun of 90%. On the other hand, over 16 missions, SpaceX saw an average cost overrun of 1.1%. SpaceX projects tended to take an average of about 4 years, while NASA projects averaged about 7 years. Interestingly, both NASA and SpaceX tend to promise faster delivery than actually occurs. SpaceX does in 4 years what it says it would do in 3, while NASA does in 6 or 7 years what it said it would do in 4. It's clear from this, SpaceX fares better than its government-run counterpart. The critics against SpaceX. Now, it's a well-known fact that SpaceX has its critics. Critics believe that SpaceX is underbidding on government contracts to build market share, relying on prodigious venture investment to make up the gap, as if it were Uber fighting taxis. By comparing public financial data on bids and investment, researchers conclude that underbidding can't make up the vast gap between costs of NASA and SpaceX projects. The significance of all that is that NASA and other policymakers or corporate planners should adapt a platform approach to solving problems. Sectors of the economy where government finds it difficult to control spending or timeframes or to realize the benefits quickly enough, health, education, climate, defense, are ripe for a platform rethink, they write. A new era. It's easy to become enamored of legendary projects like the Apollo missions, which did, after all, achieve a quantum leap in both technology and how humanity understood the universe. That's part of the reason they are so attractive. But Apollo, of course, ended, and humans have not returned to the moon. NASA's attempts to replicate Apollo have failed too. Artemis, today's moon mega project, is a hybrid of these styles, leveraging traditional programs like Boeing's SLS rocket and platform approaches through contracts for moon rovers and human landers, with SpaceX and other firms offering space services. The next trip to the moon gives us a front row seat to these philosophies playing out in practice. other participants. For the past few decades, the American Space Agency NASA and the European Space Agency ESA have been the only two primary government space agencies ruling the skies above our planet.